In addition to trainee doctors, medical school professors here in South Korea are also submitting their resignations today. What options do doctors have left now? We're joined by Professor Song Se-ryun for more. Hello there.
Hello, I can hear you now.
Perfect. Professor Song, doctors have also reduced their working hours to 52 hours per week starting today. Is this move against the law?
No, actually, Korea has a labor law and has a maximum hours of labor. So doctors are relying on that law to say that we will work at the maximum allowed by the law, which is 52 hours. Now, there are exceptions, but they're relying on that legislation to say that they are under the Korean law laborers. So their 52 hours is a legal move for them.
Sure. Now, what's on the agenda is that the licenses of those doctors who are refusing to return to duty will be suspended starting tomorrow, which is Tuesday. Now, what would it take to get their license back then? I mean, what can they do?
Well, in the past, we have seen government taking a stronger stance of taking away or revoking their licenses. Sometimes they just threaten to do so. In part, they implemented it before. Now, it all depends on whether their order to go back to work is legal. I mean, there were some administrative challenges from the doctors. The outcome is pretty uncertain at this point. But in the end, after administrative challenges and legal lawsuits, probably it'll come down to a political resolution, just like before. I mean, when the government threatened to revoke their licenses, in the end, because of the agreement they reached, they didn't do so. They took away their threats. And I think that the resolution that both parties actually are looking for is whether there would be some sort of middle ground so that it will be a justifiable for the government to do so, and also the doctors will get their job back.
Right. That's why President Yoon over the weekend said, called on officials to come up with, so-called flexible ways to deal with the process of suspending their licenses. Now, on top of that, the government made sure to note that trainee doctors who have left their work here in the country will not be able to get their license abroad in different countries. Now, is that so? How does that work?
Well, the licensing system is different in each country. So even if this is not the case, well, probably it would be difficult to get their licenses. Even if there are some reciprocities that applies to those doctors, probably the Korean doctors would face a situation where their license were revoked and suspended, which is tantamount to a kind of a black mark on their qualifications. So it will be difficult in many different fronts to get their board exams passed, but even with the reciprocities, probably they will not get the recommendations from government, and their public record of getting their licenses revoked in Korea would be a bar or a difficulty for them.
Definitely. Now, the country's health ministry just half an hour ago announced an additional 200 military doctors and public doctors will be dispatched starting today. Now, Professor Song, I want to ask you, what happens if there are medical accidents? I mean, will they be held responsible, those public doctors?
There will be a very difficult question. Now, in the past, the Supreme Court in Korea said that in normal cases, the public doctors, military doctors, when they have medical accidents, that responsibility falls on the government because they were carrying out their duties, their public duties. But in this case, they're putting into in an emergency situation to the hospitals that are not under government control. So the government already said that the responsibility would be falling on the hospitals and the medical institutions they work for. Now, I think that's pretty debatable, and if any accidents happens, the hospital would say, well, these are not the doctors we hired. When we hire doctors, we examine their qualifications, and we also take into account what kind of risk we're taking on. But in this case, those doctors were imposed on us. So that argument would be very plausible in terms of determining who the responsibility party is. I think if that happens, I think that'll go to the court.
Right. It sounds like that's when things get trickier. Now, I'm sure that would apply the same to nurses who have taken some of the duties usually undertaken by doctors. Would you say it's the same?
Well, it's the same. I think that this is, in my mind, clearer, because nurses' actions, even if they perform medical the practices or the actions that are tantamount to doctors, that has been performed under the supervision of the doctors. So without the doctors, they will be performing medical activities against the law. So there would be a lot of accusations and also the controversies, not only from the doctors, but from what we're talking about, the responsibilities and liabilities point of view, whether the nurses by law or by training are suitable to take on some of the doctor's duties.
All right, Professor Song, thank you so much for your insight this morning. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.